Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting document that somebody sent us, and we're going to dive into it today. It's called Rules for Writing the Common Technical Document Quality Module 3. Most of our listeners are already familiar with the CTD, but this deep dive is going to focus on something that I think a lot of people kind of gloss over, which is how Module 3 really is where the science of drug development meets like the art of persuasion to get that stamp of approval.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's not just about the data.
Yeah.
You really have to craft a narrative that convinces reviewers why your drug deserves to be on the market.
Exactly. And this document, it's like having a seasoned regulatory expert whispering in your ear the whole time, guiding you through every step. So let's jump right in. One thing that really struck me was this idea that Module 3 needs to tell a compelling story. It's almost like you're writing a novel.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like you're weaving a narrative that takes the reviewers on a journey, showing them how the data from those early stages of research connects to the final product you're putting forward. And what's fascinating is how this whole storytelling thing becomes even more crucial when you consider all the twists and turns that happen in drug development.
Right, because things rarely go exactly according to plan. There's always adjustments, changes to the formulation, maybe even hiccups in the manufacturing process along the way.
Exactly. And Module 3 is where you demonstrate that you didn't just change things randomly. You had a solid scientific rationale for every decision, and those changes never compromise the quality or the safety of the drug.
So it's about demonstrating that you've overcome challenges without cutting corners. Now, given your experience, what are some of the most effective strategies you've seen for telling that story in a way that really resonates with reviewers?
Well, one thing that stands out is transparency. Instead of trying to gloss over any issues that came up during development, the most successful submissions I've seen really address them head on.
Interesting. So it's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid. Better to just acknowledge the problem and explain how you solved it.
Precisely. By being upfront about the challenges and how you overcame them, you really build credibility with the reviewers. It shows you're not trying to hide anything and that you're committed to quality above all else.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about building trust through honesty, even when it comes to the less glamorous parts of the development process. Now, I know drug development often involves a whole orchestra of players, right? You've got internal teams, external partners, everyone's contributing their expertise. So how do you ensure that all those moving parts are documented meticulously and meet those high GMP standards?
Yeah, you've hit on a crucial point. This document really hammers home the importance of consistent GMP, not just within your own company, but across all the external teams that you're collaborating with.
So it's not just about having your own house in order, but making sure everyone involved in the project is singing from the same song sheet.
Exactly. And this consistency is especially important when you consider the potential headache of trying to reconstruct information later down the line if the documentation isn't up to par. Reviewers need to be able to trace every piece of data back to its source. And that can get really messy if everyone's using different systems or standards.
Yikes. It sounds like inconsistent documentation can create a real domino effect, leading to delays and a lot of extra scrutiny from the reviewers.
Absolutely, and that's why proactive planning and communication are so vital. You need to be thinking about Module 3 from the very beginning of the project, not as an afterthought. It's like laying a strong foundation. If you get that right, everything else becomes so much easier.
Now, there's a section in the document about Module 2.3, the quality overall summary. How does this fit into the grand scheme of telling a compelling story in Module 3?
Think of Module 2.3 as the executive summary of Module 3. It's where you pull out the key highlights, those big picture takeaways that give reviewers a clear understanding of the drug's journey.
So it's like the SparkNotes version, helping reviewers navigate the denser information in Module 3.
Exactly. But it's more than just a summary. It's your chance to preemptively address any questions or concerns the reviewers might have. For example, if there were any significant changes made during development, you highlight those in 2.3 and explain the rationale. Or, if you deviated from any guidelines, you lay out your justification clearly and concisely.
So it's about being proactive and guiding the reviewer's attention to the most important points. Almost like you're anticipating their questions before they even ask them.
Precisely. A well-crafted Module 2.3 can be a real game changer, making the entire review process smoother and more efficient.
I can definitely see how that would be a huge asset. And speaking of assets, the document really stresses the importance of strong leadership within the CTD team. Why is that so crucial?
Well, drug development is inherently complex, and the CTD submission process is no exception. You need someone at the helm who can see the big picture. navigate the regulatory landscape, and keep everyone rowing in the same direction.
So it's not just about having individual experts. It's about having a conductor who can orchestrate all those talents and create a harmonious symphony, so to speak.
That's a great analogy. A strong leader sets the tone for the entire process, you know, ensuring that everyone understands the marketing goals, the strengths of the drug, and any potential weaknesses in the data that need to be addressed strategically. They also create an environment where open communication and collaboration are encouraged, which is essential for catching potential issues early on.
It sounds like having a good leader can make or break the whole CTD submission process.
It can have a huge impact for sure.
Yeah.
And this document doesn't shy away from that fact at all. A well-written CTD is a clear CTD. Confusing language, poorly organized data, those are red flags for reviewers.
So it's not just about the content, it's about the presentation too, almost like you're crafting a persuasive argument, building a case for your drug's approval.
Absolutely. Clarity and conciseness are key. Reviewers are looking at tons of applications, so you want yours to be a breath of fresh air, not another headache to decipher.
That makes perfect sense. If you're drowning them in jargon and burying the key points in a sea of data, they're less likely to be receptive to your message.
Exactly. You want them to walk away from your CTD feeling confident and informed, not confused and frustrated.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm starting to see how Module 3 is so much more than just a technical document. It's about strategy, storytelling, leadership, and presenting a compelling case that resonates with reviewers.
It really is a fascinating intersection of science and communication. And this document doesn't just stop at the broad strokes. It really digs into the nitty-gritty of how to present data effectively.
Okay, so let's talk specifics. The document mentions the ICH guidelines quite a bit. You and I know those are important, but for our listener out there, could you give us the quick version of why those matter so much in the context of Module 3?
Sure, yeah. The ICH guidelines are like the universal language of drug submissions. They provide a framework for organizing and presenting data in a way that's consistent across the board. It makes life easier for reviewers because they know what to expect, where to find specific information. It just streamlines the whole process.
So it's about creating a level playing field, ensuring that everyone's speaking the same language, so to speak.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. While following the ICH guidelines is essential, this document emphasizes that there's also room for customization. It encourages you to think about your specific drug, your target market, and tailor your presentation accordingly.
So it's not just about checking boxes and following a rigid template. There's an art to finding that balance between standardization and highlighting what's unique about your drug.
Absolutely. It's about using those guidelines as a foundation, but then building upon them to create a compelling and persuasive narrative. It's where you get to showcase the strengths of your drug and address any specific concerns reviewers might have.
Now, I'm sure our listener, with all their experience, is no stranger to the complexities of regulatory submissions. But even for seasoned professionals, there can be pitfalls. What are some of the common traps that people fall into when preparing Module 3?
One of the biggest mistakes I see is treating Module 3 as an afterthought. You can't just slap it together at the end of the development process and expect it to be a cohesive, compelling document.
So it's not just about gathering the data. It's about planning for how you're going to present that data in a way that tells the right story from the very beginning.
Exactly. Module 3 needs to be woven into the fabric of your development plan from day one. This ensures that you're collecting the right data, documenting it properly, and thinking about how it will all come together in the final submission. Otherwise, you end up scrambling at the last minute, trying to force-fit pieces that don't quite belong.
And that can lead to a whole host of problems, right? Delays, inconsistencies. A narrative that doesn't quite hold up under scrutiny.
Absolutely. It can really derail the whole approval process. Another common pitfall I see is failing to connect the dots for the reviewers. You might have mountains of data, but if it's not presented in a way that clearly supports your claims of quality, safety, and efficacy, it's all for nothing.
It's like having all the ingredients for a delicious meal, but forgetting to add the seasoning and arrange it beautifully on the plate. Presentation matters.
Exactly. You need to guide the reviewers through the data. Explain what it all means and why it matters in the context of your drug's intended use. Don't assume they'll connect the dots on their own. You need to tell them the story.
So it's about being a storyteller, but also a strategist. Anticipating their questions, addressing potential concerns before they even arise.
Precisely. You want to make their job as easy as possible. They're dealing with a ton of applications, so the clearer and more concise your submission, the better.
Now, speaking of clarity, there's a section in this document that really resonated with me. It talks about the importance of being specific. avoiding vague language and generalizations.
Oh, that's a great point. It's one of those subtle things that can make a big difference. Instead of just saying the drug was well tolerated, give them specifics. 95% of patients in clinical trials reported no adverse events. That level of detail adds credibility and builds confidence.
It's like the difference between saying, this house is nice, and this house has a chef's kitchen, a spa-like bathroom, and a view of the ocean. Details matter.
Exactly. You want to paint a vivid picture for the reviewers, using concrete evidence to support your claims. Don't be afraid to get granular with the data, especially when it comes to showcasing the strengths of your drug.
This document also cautions against getting too caught up in the technical aspects and forgetting about the human element. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
It's a good point. It's a reminder that behind all the data and regulations, there are real people involved in this process. Reviewers, patients, the team working on the submission. Everyone brings their own perspectives and experiences to the table.
So it's about recognizing that while science is at the heart of drug development, there's also a human dimension that can't be ignored.
Exactly. And that's why this document emphasizes the importance of building a strong team with a shared vision. It's not just about individual expertise. It's about fostering a culture of collaboration, open communication, and mutual respect.
It sounds like those interpersonal dynamics can make or break the entire submission process.
They absolutely can. When you have a team that's firing on all cylinders, communicating effectively and working towards a common goal, it shows in the final product. The CTD becomes a reflection of that collective effort, and that can make a huge difference in how reviewers perceive it.
Now, speaking of reviewers, the document has this intriguing section about thinking like a reviewer. What exactly does that entail, and why is it so important?
Well, this is one of the most valuable insights this document offers. It encourages you to step outside your own perspective as the drug developer and put yourself in the shoes of the reviewer who will be evaluating your submission.
That sounds like a real mental exercise.
It is, but it's so crucial because it helps you anticipate potential questions, identify areas where the reviewers might get hung up, and address those proactively.
So it's like a game of chess thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly. You're trying to anticipate the reviewer's next question before they even ask it. The document suggests some really practical strategies for doing this, like creating a mock review team within your own organization.
So you have colleagues role play as reviewers.
Yeah.
And put your submission through a rigorous test run.
Exactly. It's a great way to get fresh eyes on the document, identify potential areas of confusion or weakness, and make sure the narrative is clear and compelling.
That's such a smart strategy. It's like having a dress rehearsal before opening night.
It really is. And it can save you a lot of headaches down the line by catching those potential problems early on. Another key aspect of thinking like a reviewer is understanding your audience.
So you're not just thinking about reviewers in general, but the specific agency you're submitting to, their priorities, their areas of focus, their potential concerns.
Exactly. Different agencies have different cultures, different expectations. Some might be laser-focused on safety data, while others might place a greater emphasis on the manufacturing process. You need to do your homework and tailor your submission accordingly.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about being adaptable and strategic in how you present the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all comes back to being proactive and putting yourself in the reviewer's shoes. The more you can anticipate their needs and tailor your submission accordingly, the smoother the entire approval process will be. This document also talks about the importance of addressing potential red flags up front, rather than trying to sweep them under the rug.
So transparency is key, even when it comes to the less than perfect aspects of the drug's development.
Absolutely. If there were any inconsistencies in the data, challenges in the manufacturing process, or safety concerns that arose during clinical trials, don't try to hide them. Be upfront, explain the reasons behind them, and outline the steps you took to mitigate them.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Better to do it quickly and get it over with than to prolong the pain.
Exactly. Trying to hide or downplay potential problems will only erode the reviewer's trust. It's far better to acknowledge the issues and demonstrate how you've addressed them in a responsible and scientifically sound manner.
It sounds like honesty and transparency are really the cornerstones of a successful Module 3 submission.
They really are. It's about building a relationship of trust with the reviewers, showing them that you're committed to quality safety and transparency every step of the way.
This has been incredibly insightful. It's amazing how this document manages to be both practical and inspiring. It not only provides concrete tips for crafting a successful Module 3 submission, but also encourages us to think about the bigger picture, the human element, and the importance of integrity throughout the entire process. It really is a fascinating document. And there's this one line that I keep coming back to, this idea that you should treat your CTD submission like a work of art.
Oh, yeah. That's such a powerful way to frame it, isn't it? It really elevates the whole process beyond just a technical exercise.
Exactly, but what does it actually mean? To approach Module 3 with that artistic mindset.
Well, think about what makes a great work of art captivating. It's not just about technical skill, right? It's about evoking emotion, telling a story, creating something that resonates on an intellectual and even visceral level.
So you're saying that a truly successful Module 3 submission should do the same?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It should be technically sound, meticulously crafted, and aligned with all the regulatory requirements, but it should also be beautifully presented, logically structured, and tell a compelling story that draws the reviewer in.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where science meets storytelling, where data transforms into a narrative that resonates with the reader.
Exactly. And when you approach Module 3 with this mindset, it changes everything. It impacts how you select and present data, how you structure your arguments, and even how you communicate with your team.
It's about taking pride in your work, not just from a scientific standpoint, but from an artistic one as well.
Precisely. You're creating something that represents the culmination of years of research development and collaboration. It's a testament to the dedication and ingenuity of your entire team.
I love that perspective. It reframes the whole CTD submission process in a way that's both inspiring and empowering.
And this document offers one final piece of advice that I think ties everything together beautifully. It encourages us to remember that the ultimate goal of all this effort, all this meticulous documentation and strategic storytelling, is to bring safe and effective treatments to the patients who need them most.
Yeah, it's so easy to get lost in the weeds of regulations and technical details, but at the end of the day, it's about improving people's lives. That's what really matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This document is a must-read for anyone involved in the drug development process. It's a practical guide, a source of inspiration, and a reminder of the profound impact our work can have on the world.
Absolutely. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the nuances of Module 3, from the importance of meticulous documentation to the power of storytelling and the art of thinking like a reviewer.
And we hope our listeners have walked away with some valuable insights and a renewed sense of purpose in their work.
To all our listeners out there, we encourage you to approach your next CTD submission with the same level of dedication, creativity, and commitment to excellence that we've discussed today.
Remember, a well-crafted Module 3 is more than just a document. It's a testament to your passion for science, your dedication to improving human health, and your ability to translate complex data into a compelling story that can change lives.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and never underestimate the power of a well-told story.